Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for a second group here on the Starcraft 2 SBENU Star League here at SportsTV Games. I am Wolf. With me is Moonglade tonight, and we have 4 Protosses coming at you guys in this group.
Oh man, it's going to be an interesting one, that's for sure. 5 PvPs we got lined up here, and some of the best Protoss in the world, you know. CJ here, Potting, just to say, name a couple. Then we got Deer, and one other that...
Stats,
that's it, the best one of all, actually.
Yeah.
The one that's been doing a lot of killing in Pro League especially.
Yeah, these 3 Protosses definitely on top of the world in as far as Protoss goes, and it's kind of really cool that we get to see them all fight each other. Now, the winner of those 3 Protosses doesn't necessarily mean they're the best Protoss in the world, but it does mean they're the best at PvP.
Sure, absolutely. It's going to be really interesting to see how this ends up, because we did actually get a taste of Potting yesterday playing GSL, and he kind of fell short in his PvP to someone we weren't expecting to do so well with Myunchik.
Yeah, the crazy cannon game comes to mind. That was a great game.
Fantastic game, actually.
It's so funny just how that one ended up. I'm not going to really spoil anything and get too big into details, so if you missed the VOD, definitely go check that one out. But it was great series. A really wonky series. Definitely a lot of proxies going on, and I feel like this is not just because Parting was against Myunchik. I feel like we might see him throw a few proxies in today.
I hope so. You know, I hope he gets to really spice it up, because I'm sure everyone's looked at this and is like, oh, it's 4 Protoss.
Yeah.
Today could be a bit of a slow one, but when you got the likes of Parting in this group, I think it's really going to spice things up. We're going to see a lot of aggression. Same might be said for someone like Deer, who is coming into this kind of like the underdog. Yeah. And he might be willing to throw things out there that we might not be expecting.
Exactly. Deer, I definitely think we're going to see a lot of proxies out of him. Not necessarily gateways, but like maybe proxy Stargates. Yeah. A lot of Oracle play. Really depends on the maps as well that we end up seeing here, because obviously on smaller maps, these sort of abilities, or your builds, excuse me, are a bit more viable, you know, a little bit easier to actually pull off.
Yeah, absolutely. So first match of the day is going to be Stats versus Deer.
Yeah.
That's going to be an interesting one. Definitely favoring Stats.
For sure.
Where
Deer,
he is right now, like obviously we're going to get a lot more into that when we get the players up on screen, but Deer has got quite the match ahead of him.
Yeah, he definitely does. I mean, Deer is the big underdog in this group. The 3 Titans that he's up against are just so highly favored against him. Even though he beat SOS earlier, you know, to get to this stage in Protoss versus Protoss, SOS is very experimental. He's had a few off days in recent times. He's definitely not top 4 Protoss like he used to be.
Yeah, that's right. He's really, you know, kind of grasping at straws, we could even say, in some of his builds and matches. Like, he's getting these hidden bases in a lot of his games in every matchup, which is such a insane risk that can be shut down so hard if the scouting is done right. But he still go for it, and he's got all sorts of crazy builds up his sleeve. That still wasn't enough for Deer, and Deer just shut him down in some 3-1, actually.
Yep. Well, looks like this is another champion ring we've got up here, if I'm not mistaken.
Looks pretty badass.
Yeah, it looks pretty awesome. So
it's got a light on it, apparently. It's flashing.
I think that might just be a reflection.
I don't know, man. It might be some LEDs inside that ring.
It could be both. Now, keep in mind, if you win this contest or raffle, I'm not entirely sure of the details because it just popped up and surprised me a little bit, you'll get the same ring that the champion gets, so that's kind of cool. It looks like there's a few other giveaways here amongst some signed Wings of Liberty record here. Maybe it's actually the soundtrack, I would guess. Yeah, the LP record album for Wings of Liberty. That's pretty cool.
That is really cool, actually.
Signed by Pro Gamers Classic, so guess I'll be all up there. I didn't sign it, sorry.
No, I didn't get to sign it either. You're going to have to get out your old record player to play that one there. Might be a little difficult this day and age, but we'll see.
Maybe so. So, just to kind of clarify a little bit, we're actually playing Group D today.
That's right.
As you guys can see, we skipped over Group B and C. We're going to go actually A, D, C, B is the order we're doing here to, of course, kind of give these players, you know, a little bit of room in their schedule for events they're going into. The GSL is going on at the same time as well.
That's right, yeah. Unfortunately for Potting, he had to play yesterday, though, so he's going head-to-head with his big important matches in the individual leagues.
Yeah. Now, just looking at this group, we already talked about it before, but Deer, big time the underdog here. Stats, Parting, and Hero, most people would say they're top 3 Protosses in the world right now.
Quite easily, actually, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they're right on the cusp of, I'd say, the other top 2 players in general in the world, which are Maru and Life. Like, these 3 players are on the edge right behind them. We saw, you know, Parting actually go down to Life in the grand finals of the last GSL. We saw Stats, you know, end up falling in the round of 4, nearly making it to that finals to face Life. So, I mean, this is a really stacked lineup. Hero, definitely one of the best Protoss of all time. We saw him have an incredible run through the qualifiers, and in his matchup that we saw in the round of 32, he just looked on another level. I mean, this guy is really, really, really looking strong right now.
Yeah, he really excels in Pro League more than anything else these days. We haven't seen him get to that final stage in these individual leagues. Maybe this time it's going to be a pretty interesting match. I actually favor him over Parting coming into this, considering what we saw from Parting yesterday.
Yeah.
He did lose to Myungshik in a best of 3, which, Myungshik's kind of down the list of top Protoss players, I got to say.
Yeah, definitely prepared well. Here's stats. Let's take a look at his stats, no pun intended. He's ranked 13 in WCS with 1,325 points. You can see he's been playing in a bunch of tournaments even since 2013's MLG Pro circuit.
Yeah.
And made it to the round of 4, as I was mentioning, in the Naver Star League. Only made it to the round of 16 in the Hot 6 Cup. Not the best results he's ever had, really, in GSL.
Well, that was a while ago, too. Hot 6 Cup was just the end of last year.
Yeah.
And, yeah, he did get knocked out last season to Maru in the round of 4, so he did pretty well for himself. And looking at else what he's got here, this guy's just been dominating, in Pro League more than anything else. He has been on such a tear. And here is Deer. Took down SOS in that challenger for this season. Good start to it, but he's got a long way to go. He did pretty well in Kessler Cup, actually, defeating the likes of Rain and Sora and Hush in PvP. So yeah, he's got a little bit of a streak to his PvP in recent times.
Yeah, especially Sora and Hush. And Hush really known for his Protoss versus Protoss in Pro League. So to beat a guy like that is definitely no easy feat, Moonblade.
Not at all.
So taking a little bit of a closer look at these guys' stats, you can see that Stats was seeded into this tournament, of course, based off of his performance in the Neighbors Star League, whereas Deer was able to beat SOS, as mentioned before, 3-1. So there's a few stats here on screen about Protoss to Protoss, but there's really not a ton to go on. The most important part is in sets, Deer is 8-2 in PvP, so that's somewhat impressive.
That is actually very impressive. He's maybe a little bit more dangerous than we give him credit for in this group. And,
yeah, Deer is one of those players I always worry about getting tilted, though. I worry about his nerves a little bit.
Well, we have seen that in a few plays in recent times with a mentality going into these best-of games, especially from these Kespa teams, which do a lot of training specifically for Pro League matches. They seem to really fold under the pressure when they're down a game in the start of a best-of-5 or something like that.
Yeah. Now, notice that, the matchup that Stats has actually played in his career by far the most is actually PVT. He's got a great Protoss versus Terran, background, although his record actually in that matchup is his worst. About 1 out of 4 games he'll end up playing, though, is the Protoss versus Protoss matchup, where he has a 70% win rate. And his versus Zerg win rate, he actually has not dropped a map in this stats pool, which must be just from Star League, because there's no way that he's never lost to a Zerg.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the way it's gone down in the past. Deer, on the other hand, I believe he recently, in his last season, he did lose in the round of 8 to Life, so that's why he's got that pretty low percentage for his Zerg. The other matches, I can't exactly remember who he ended up going through last season.
Well, these stats, just reading the bottom right, it says that it's from December 1st of last year on.
Okay.
Just an incredible win rate in the Protoss versus Protoss matchup, though, here for Deer. As we were saying earlier, the sets wins he has, and 12-3 overall. That's pretty impressive. That's also 15 games. That's the matchup he's played, second most at 15 games played. So here are bans here. We have Vani and Overgrowth banned for Stats, and Deer bans Deadwing and Cactus Valley. So with these banned maps, our set maps are going to be Expedition Lost, Merry-Go-Round, and then Sejong. So,
okay. Well, this is very interesting to look at, considering we see Stats getting rid of two of the 2-player maps, Deer getting rid of the bigger maps. Obviously, don't want to go to the late game against someone like Stats. I can definitely understand where he's coming from, and this could definitely say a lot about his playstyle coming into today.
Absolutely. It definitely goes to show that Deer does not want to play late game against Stats, and Stats knows that and does not want to actually get tangled up in any of these 3 gateway stalker plays, these blink stalker aggressions against Deer here.
Definitely potential for proxies on the map and whatnot from Deer if he wants to.
All right, guys, let's go into match number 1 here. Group D, Stats versus Deer. Down here in the bottom left, in blue for KT Rolster, it's Stats. Known as the Solution Toss in Korea.
The Solution Toss.
That's what they've been calling him recently.
And up here in the top right, we do have Deer. What is he known as, Wolf?
Deer is known for a Korean drama where his name, Baekdong-ju, is similar to the name Baekdong-soo, which is the name of a warrior in a drama that's actually just called Warrior Baekdong-soo. And because his name is similar to that, they feel like he's kind of a warrior. And that's actually where his little image, his little graphic, the little circle that he has with a warrior is from.
Okay.
He's also known to look like a famous comedian in Korea whose nickname is the Grasshopper. That's why he has this little grasshopper on top of his cape.
That's interesting. It's actually surprisingly deep, these meanings to their names.
Yeah. It goes pretty deep. I've been doing like a little bit of research on those because I think the little graphics are super duper cool.
Oh yeah, it's very original. We haven't really seen that before in these leagues.
So we have a slightly later gate here for Stats, it looks like. Looks like he went 13 versus the 12. Otherwise,
sliver of a difference.
Yeah, otherwise basically the same builds, a slightly later gas for him as well. In fact, actually, keeping it off of just one gas, going to go ahead and put up spotter piling up in the main base up here to the north. We're going to get some extra mineral mining instead of taking that second gas.
Yeah, so we can definitely see a nice sort of early tech from Deer. Maybe he wants to go for that proxy. We'll see when a probe goes out in the map.
Yeah, and so far Stats still keeping with the one gas, and he is the first person to scout as he takes his second gas. And this leads me to believe he might want to go for a 2-gateway opening.
Could very well do.
With some of those extra minerals.
Go for an earlier expansion as well. There's a bit of a later second gas now.
Yeah. And the probe scout will be spotted, so Deer's going to know that a scout's coming in so he can obviously hide any tech he wants to keep hidden. And we do see that second gate going up for Stats back at home, and here comes that probe scout. Going to come in here and just see the second gas timing and is going to stick around until any ranged units can come and ward him out so he can kind of delay tech this way.
Yeah. He's going to really have to force out a Stalker or a Mothership Core to shut it down. Until then, he's got free reign of the base. And we are going to see Deer come down and scout that second gateway by the looks of things. Let's see, he pulls out a little too early. And it kind of gives away that Stats will probably want to go for an earlier expansion with this. He's going to get map control. He's going to have extra Stalkers on the map. Be able to shut down any proxies that might be out there, and from there, take an easy base.
Moonglade, he didn't see that gateway. He didn't actually check it, so this is
bit of a sloppy start from Deer then, not going all the way around the base.
And with that late Mothership core that you saw building, he might be a bit concerned about Stargate play hidden on the map, so he needs to be careful. And just because he doesn't know about the gateway, he might play a little bit more defensively than he originally planned. The Stargate he's making now back at home.
Yeah, very possible. You know, he's kind of spread out everything. He's got a probe on that Zelnaga down the bottom. He's going to start trading blows. He's going to have to pull back there.
Yeah, a little bit of damage done here, but nothing critical. But the next two Stalkers are going to be able to do a little bit more permanent damage here.
Yeah, and Stats, you know, he's waiting at that natural with the probe to put down that Nexus the moment he can afford it.
This probe scout will actually see no Nexus. Oh, you know, I don't think he got quite close enough to know.
No, I don't think so. But I think it gave it away just the same because he did see 3 Stalkers on the map. So, oh, you went double gateway. You're going to go in for an expansion, no doubt.
Yeah. And
Oracle follow-up, pretty strong against this, I'd have to say, especially if they're out of position.
Exactly, and the Oracle here is just a great way to kind of punish somebody who's like you're saying, a bit sometimes out of position with these Stalkers. They might be roaming on the map, as they are now. And, you know, he was possibly considering going Phoenix, I guess, because he didn't see the second gateway, but now that he got that scout, he's very confident in his follow-up. But he needs to do damage with this, because without doing damage, obviously Stats is going to be in a great position with 2 bases up and running. Yeah,
he will pull ahead, but look at these Stalkers. Look how out of position they are. I'm going to have to wait and see where this Mothership Core is. It should be back home by the time this Oracle comes in, so he will have that photon overcharge to push it back.
That's very important.
Oh, yeah. So important. He sees it.
Even the sentries here are going to help out a little bit. And just 1 kill.
Just 1. Takes quite a lot of damage from that as well. 50 HP left.
Oh, a nice snipe attempt here by Deer with those Stalkers, but doesn't actually work out. Looks like he's actually just going to commit to some pressure here using the Oracle possibly to pop these sentries.
I don't know. He's got such a small window because we do see that Immortal on the way already for Stats. The moment that's out, there's going to be simply no hope of damage. But big mistake.
He's going to lose it. 1 health left. There it goes.
Oh, wow. really out of position with that Oracle.
You can't be losing expensive units like this. Definitely not going to be able to continue the pressure as heavily as he would have liked to.
Absolutely not. Hallucination's going to see everything as well. And he's got 2 force fields, so he can't block the ramp in time for this Immortal to come down.
He might want to trap these in. And that's exactly what he does. Traps 4 in here. Here comes that Immortal, and these are going to be totally wiped out.
Big mistake there. Deer just being a little too greedy with his aggression.
Yeah, it's like he thought that Stats was actually just playing a bit greedier than he really was. I mean,
it seems that way, but he even saw the 2 sentries and the 4 stalkers like running up that ramp. Obviously, you're going to get you're going to get cut in half, and he's going to get those free kills.
Right, and also, like, where does he think that gas is going? The gas he's got left over. He hasn't seen any tech, so he must just be assuming, or he should be, that there's an Immortal coming, that the robotics tech is coming. So this is a bit overzealous here by Deer, and even trying to do some fancy force field micro with these Stalkers is not going to cut it. He cannot continue to attack here.
There's not enough Stalkers for him to really warrant even an attempt on that Immortal with force fields because the DPS just isn't there. He's going to trade very cost inefficiently. He does not have Blink behind it. He doesn't really have anything else behind it. Only adding his Robo right now.
And if you look at the resources that Stats has been mining all this time, he's got a massive bank in minerals. He's got a decent gas bank as well. He even supply blocks Deer now with a kill on the pylon. He actually needs to build like 2 pylons to be able to catch up, to keep up with where he is. The gases are coming down comfortably here, and it looks like Stats is just going to sit back with his lead. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Force come up pretty soon.
Yeah, should happen any moment now. Same with the Robo Bay. You know, he's just going to get further ahead from here. He's stabilized in 2 base. He's got that small economic lead, small army lead in composition and supply. From here, all you got to do is sit there, sit tight, make Colossus, get that Death Ball up and running, take your eventual 3rd base when you know it's safe.
Yeah. And this is what PvP is kind of about. You know, once the aggression stops, once you get past that scary moment, it's all about just, you know, being as greedy as you can while kind of turtling, because there's this huge defender's advantage in this matchup.
Oh yeah, especially early on, because there is nothing to break the force field, so it gets that much harder, as we did see with the attempt earlier on. Just lost so many Stalkers for nothing with 2 force fields.
Yeah. Well, Phoenix gets picked off here. After scouting everything, scouting the comp, scouting the Colossi are on the way. This Bay is so late for Deer, but he has to kind of just commit to it, because with the current way PvP is, especially considering how far behind he is in general, he can't just rush Tempest out. Tempest aren't as effective in the recent patch as they used to be, so unfortunately for him, he kind of just has to accept being behind and kind of turtle and hope he gets a good engagement. That's kind of how this matchup goes sometimes.
Yeah, you know, the longer it goes, the better it is for Deer, because they are going to get up to that eventual army that is so big where it really comes down to positioning more than anything else. Once you got that, you're good to go. And obviously, if you go to the late game, you can try and sneak out those Tempests. Once you got like a healthy number, like, you know, 10 Tempests is a pretty good number. I believe we saw Zest do that once upon a time on Deadwing in this patch, and it was still so damn efficient.
Oh, look at this. Going to get 3 Stalkers and a Sentry. Good counter force fields here by Deer to at least make sure he got something out of that. It wasn't a completely free trade, but it was still pretty terrible.
Yeah. And once again, you're getting the back end of that. That Nexus is half done at the 3rd.
Warp Prism is coming up here for Deer. I like this idea, because that's one way to try to catch up if he can, you know, multitask that really well and get some kills and save his Zealots, you know, fly out.
Oh, well, that's going to be an Immortal drop as well, so this could be very possibly do a lot of damage if everything's out of position.
Yeah, it could be a bit of a double-edged sword as well, though, because if he ends up losing this, that's very expensive.
This could be it.
This could be it. He needs to turn that around right away here. Okay, he should be able to escape with it.
He should be fine from here. That is dangerous. He might want to actually pull him back, considering he knows exactly where Stats' army is and what could be coming his way. Looks like he might even try and trade out the 3rd base for the 3rd base. You know, drop Immortals, Warp, and Zealots.
Oh boy, but look at these Stalkers coming right for it. He needs to drop those Immortals out right now, I think.
He has to. He's not doing it just yet, though. Very surprising.
Oh, he's starting to take so much damage. There he goes, drops him out. Oh, good control here. He's going to actually wipe these Stalkers, so this is a big problem. But meanwhile, his 3rd base is going to go down here. The Nexus Cannon feebly trying to deny this, but does nothing.
He can recall from this point and defend his own 3rd. And then Deer is just in a horrible position. He never took advantage of this Warp Prism.
And even without a recall, he already has enough Zealots against pure Immortals on that Warp Prism to hold this off. Colossus range is done, I believe, right, for the Stats army? I think it is. It looked like it was. I
believe so.
So he just had that extra poke potential, which we saw him use there. Now he's up an extra base. And instead of overcommitting here and possibly messing up a fight, he's just going to walk back and hold on to his 3 bases, continue his upgrades, continue his Colossus building count. Probably going to add a second robo.
He's up a base. You know, there's only one thing he has to do at this point, and that's hold the third base. He has to sit here, deflect anything until he's maxed out, because he's always going to be ahead, no matter what. He cannot actually fall behind at this point if he plays it smart.
Yeah. You know, as I say, when you're ahead, get more ahead, which is kind of this idiom of StarCraft that ends up being true, right? I mean, it's definitely the best way to play.
Oh, absolutely. It's the completely logical way to play, especially in a mirror match, you know. There's a lot less factors come into play when your armies are exactly the same and your economy is so far ahead, your army's so far ahead. You don't have to take risks anymore. You just have to maintain that lead. Right. But look at this, you know, Stats has not been adding probes to this third base in a very long time. Starting to now, but leads me to believe he might actually want to just be aggressive and try and go for the kill.
He did add a ton of gates. He did get a faster Templar Archives to add Archons in as well, so he's got this really strong reinforcing power. Oh boy, this Warp Prism barely escapes with that pylon kill. But this third base of Deer, I just don't think he's going to be able to hold it. I mean, there's no way.
Looking at what he has, you know, he just really has no buffer for these Colossus. He's got 5 Colossus right now, but like nothing really underneath him. He's warping in a bunch more Zealots, but is that even going to be enough?
He's got a huge Zealot deficit. He also doesn't have Archons. There are 2 Archons in Stats' army here. And Stats is getting ready to get the best engagement here. He's setting up his army in such a nice arc here. Look at this. Look at how he sets this up. Kills the Observer, which means that now Deer does not really know the angle of approach. And Deer does have 1 more Colossus than Stats, but there's just so much buffer. I'm not sure if it's going to matter because the Colossi, if they don't all fan out, they don't all fire.
Yeah, these Archons are going to make a huge difference when the fight finally comes. So many Zealots around the flank as well. Here we go.
Oh, look at that. The Zealots with Deer stuck in the back as well. Time Warps go down on both sets of Colossi, but Stats doesn't need to micro his because he has so much buffer, just tearing through this army. Every time Deer steps back with his Colossi, they miss DPS, and this is just a total thrashing here. And that's going to be it for game number 1, it looks like.
Yeah, way too much.
GG. Stats showing why he is favored in this group.
Yeah, that was actually pretty easy for him, I gotta say. He was ahead every step of the way. And Deer showing some pretty big blunders in his decision making, you know, with dealing with his trading third bases or defending his and doing damage to Stats. It just never happened. I was so surprised that Immortal Drop didn't do anything. You know, all it did was run away from 4 Stalkers while his third base was getting destroyed.
He just seemed to be a bit like his multitasking failed him a little bit there. Maybe even going for the main base would have been a better choice. So you could pick up some pylons on the edge, maybe force a recall, start to force some Warpins back at home.
Yeah, it was quite surprising. You know, he didn't find anything with that. He could have at least forced out like a recall onto the third base with his Immortal Drop. You know, he could have done a lot of things with that.
Yeah.
At the same time, I guess maybe he was just really afraid that Stats might just try and kill him, like kill his natural and just win the game that way. So he was warping in at home at the same time.
You know, he also didn't have map control. Stats had total map control, so he was able to find the Warp Prism. He didn't know where to send the Warp Prism in a safe location, so he kind of ended up running into some stray Stalkers.
That's right.
Which is part of the advantages that you get from having that early lead in the game and having that early presence on the map and that you know, the pylons he had all over the map, that early small army he had that was kind of poking towards the third base. Without map vision, without map control, the whole map is dark for Deer, and he's just kind of, the Warp Prism almost in a sense